everyone, my name is Lisa. Welcome to the channel. I am an IBCLC and CLC. I specialize in pumping and oral function for families, and mostly right now the channel is all about pumping. I love to give you pumping teardowns, showing you the internals of how these pumps operate. I'll do PSAs if one of them is excessively ridiculous. I like to do pump reviews and just other helpful content around pumping. I also review products like fanny packs, bras, things of that nature to help your pumping journey be easier. So, with all of that, one of the fantastic things about today's video is we are reviewing the Willow Go. If you are new to the channel or you're new to me, then a little bit of back history. I've been actually intimately been working and testing with the Willow pumps since their release back in 2018. They technically released in 2017. I came on scene 2018, 2019, and then just kind of stuck. Willow and I do actually have a pretty rocky history. I have never been an employee of Willow, will never be an employee of Willow, but they did use me for a time in their, like, influencer testing group, I guess you could call it. They never really had a name for it. It was kind of just Mod Podge of all of us moms and professionals that had been kind of the masters of their pumps for a long time. And so they would ask us advice, let us test some things. In the end, they got rid of us because they didn't like our feedback and they didn't like that we actually tested things. So that is part of the disclaimer here, is just the fact that I do have a history with Willow. I haven't actually had communication with the company or worked with them since end of 2022, 2023, beginning of the year kind of thing. Because the last time I really worked with them was a little after the Go launch, and it was just such a disaster. That's when they were like, yeah, our feelings are hurt. Full disclaimer, as far as the Go, I had been gifted the Go from the company. They don't know I'm doing this review. They definitely don't endorse me at all. I don't endorse them. And they're seeing this review and everything else I do at the same time you are. That is one of the biggest things that you'll learn about me, is even if something is gifted or donated or sponsored or whatever, it's not going to actually affect how I test, I review, and then I share that information with you. Because at the end of the day, the companies don't get to dictate any of the content that is on my channel, and that is going to always be my promise to you. So if you go back to the history of this channel, there was basically like a public PSA on the Willow Go, but it wasn't actually my full review. It was just to get the very critical information out while everything else kind of shook out and life came back together. Like I said, there is a history with Willow, so this one is actually going to be quite a little extra juicy review. There's going to be plenty of tidbits in here that you may not see with other companies, not because I didn't do my due diligence, but just because there's history there. If you do see me kind of looking down a little bit, I'm referencing my notes because this review is going to be a long one. I will have the chapters and things like that saved if you want to just skip to the parts that matter most to you, because I do recognize that this is going to be a very, very in-depth review. Another disclaimer is that I am an affiliate for the Willow company. I don't actually communicate or engage with them. I also don't do any other marketing things. It's strictly a shopping link for you, and ideally coupons when available. But if that interests you and after this review you decide that the Willow Go is a safe bet for you, then just find the description down below and you can find my shopping link. First up, we're going to talk about the design of the Willow Go. So when you look at it, it doesn't look like the other pumps on the market. That's one of the great things about it, in the sense that this is truly a design that you're not going to find everywhere else. It honestly doesn't bother me, but it can be a problem when you're in need of parts, just because you can't go out and grab anybody's parts. So there's a pro and con to that, but personally, I like the fact that they've designed it and it's completely proprietary. You're not going to find Chinese companies or even other American companies being able to go in and manufacture the same parts because they have strict patents on all of them. And they have patents on them even with their manufacturer who is creating the parts for them. So, one of the things that you look at when you're seeing this is the 5-ounce container. It is slightly smaller overall compared to the Willow 360 or the 3.0, 3 to 1 gens that you may be used to. So, this is slightly slimmer, but not by much. It's more that it's just more sloped as it comes to the top, trying to give it a more natural profile where the gens are just like a big old hunk of curved plastic. Now, they do sell a 7-ounce container. If you go to the 7-ounce container, there's no discreteness compared to it versus a generation pump. So just be aware of that. If you're coming from a generation pump and you're thinking this is going to be more discreet, don't hold your breath. One other thing, this container is not the one with the pour spout cap. They did end up redesigning this to come with a cap that you can plug this pour spout without it exploding. So one of the things when it first released was everybody was trying to plug this particular pour spout and it would actually explode and separate the parts and everything like that forcefully after enough pressure got built up. Willow, after 4 years, Willow, after 4 years, finally decided that was probably a problem and they should probably work on that. They redesigned the containers to add a cap while also allowing to vent off that pressure. That way you didn't have that same issue. So just know that when you're looking at mine, it will be a little bit different just because you'll have a pour spout cap on yours. One of the biggest frustrations with the design is how they made the container back and the duckbill. So obviously your duckbill is completely silicone. This is a hard plastic, but then all of this is silicone again. And there's a silicone little lip and all here that's used for sealing up against the bowl of the product. But literally this internally and this is silicone. Why that matters is because you can't fridge hack. Essentially, this combination makes fridge hacking virtually impossible. And when you are successful with it, it's only hit or miss because your milk fat may be less one day and then higher the next pump and it all slips off. Basically, what's happening is as you're pumping, all of this is collecting milk fat and it's going to end up around this ring from the duckbill. So then when you put this in the fridge and you pull it back out, it's just all super slick, super greasy. This ends up popping off after fridge hacking because as it's got the pressure going and the flow of the milk, it's just going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing until it's off. The last thing you want to do is take off your Willow Go and find the duckbill down in the bottom of the container and you've now flooded your pump if you even had milk flowing when it detached. So, just another little downside there. Additionally, their membrane here, you need to put it on and keep it straight, like when you pull through, but this tends to stretch out. So, you'll need to stay on top of that to make sure that all your parts are working as they should to give you the best suction. Again, a lot of that's just design of the pump. Some of it's material, but majority of it's going to come down to just the design. So that kind of leads us into the next portion of my review, which is going to be durability. This is not only going to be talking about durability of the parts, but also the motor. In terms of the parts, I would say they're decent. I don't love them. I feel like they could be a lot better. And I feel like they could be better for the price tag that they're sold at. But they're not the worst I've seen either. We'll talk about maintenance and frequency of replacing and the pricing later on in this video. But for me, the durability of the parts are okay. The biggest flaw that they have in terms of durability is they can't be cleaned in the dishwasher, even though they're advertised to be able to do so. They don't survive in steam sterilizers. They don't really survive in all of the bottle washers. So some of them, like Baby Brezza and some knockoffs that you would find on Amazon, they actually heat a little bit hotter than you would really want, and they can cause warping. Things like Mom Cozy, the Groansy bottle washers, they don't heat as high, and so they're safer, but they're not foolproof for this particular pump. Especially if you use the steam feature, it can still warp like the bowl and the backing to where it just doesn't sit right and it's not flat anymore. Overall durability of the parts, I'm going to give it like a 3 out of 5. Not great, not the worst. In terms of the motor, this is going to be the frustrating part for everybody. The motor durability, it's basically got none. It is a pump that you can guarantee you need to replace in about 90 days. And that's if everything is going perfect and you don't have a single flaw happening. That is the beauty to Willow's warranty. Again, we'll get deeper into that later. But this pump is basically going to have to be replaced every 3 months, which is a lot, whether you're pumping a lot or not. It's also extremely frustrating to need a wearable, say for work or outing, and then suddenly it's dead and you're now waiting for a replacement. So it's just something to have in mind. If you have bra fit that isn't quite right, flange fit that's not quite right, depending on your charging habits, like do you pump and immediately charge after? How do you assemble the pump? Because oddly enough, that does play a role in this particular pump. All of that can actually kill this pump faster than the 90 days, which is even more frustrating for everybody involved. Another factor into whether or not your Willow Go is actually going to survive is actually going to be the app updates. It's pretty much Russian roulette. They have had more successful releases in the last year and a half where it's not mass murdering their pumps. However, that doesn't take away the risk. It does still happen. It's really just a ticking time bomb as to whether or not they're going to off it with their app update or if it's going to off itself and just stop working altogether. Another point to the durability thing that I find to be a sore spot is when this pump released, even the manual had it for a 25-minute pumping session. They thought that was fine and dandy, except they found that it was killing their pumps more and more and more. So even though the auto shut off on this thing, like this will pump for 25 minutes, but the company's going to tell you, oh, well, we told you to only pump 15 minutes at a time because they actually went in and changed all those recommendations and told you to only pump for 15 minutes because past that, this all starts getting too warm on the internals and it's just not doing well. And one would think, okay, well, maybe I'll pump for 15 minutes, turn it off, give it a break, and then pump for the other 15 minutes to really get my pumping session in. It's really not going to matter. The cool down time on this pump is also excessively long. So either way you slice it, just pump like normal, but understand that you will need the warranty because you are going to have to replace it. Even if you did everything right, it'll still kill itself. I will say though, even though there are a ton of durability concerns, as of today, Willow is still honoring their 12-month warranty. They haven't given moms problems with that. And you can still purchase the extended warranty through them when you're buying through the website. So I will give them credit for that. But also you need that. Absolutely take the investment into the warranty and ensure you have that. I don't recommend doing secondhand Willow Go pumps, even if you're just trying it out, because there's no way to prove that you got that pump in a working condition. So you might be trying out a dead pump. And when you sit there and you go, well, it didn't work for me, was it working at all? We can't really prove that. So just know this is not a pump to get secondhand at all. And it's certainly not one to try and sell after you're done with it because it's just not worth it for anybody involved. You'd have better luck setting money on fire in your yard than purchasing a used Willow Go or trying to sell it. This portion of the video is going to be all about the teardown and patents. Honestly, because I already have a very thorough video on this, I'm going to actually link the PSA video that I did years ago. It shows the teardown. There's truly nothing different in that pump to now. We keep testing them and keep up to date, and they just haven't changed. They don't innovate. So there's truly nothing different. You can see all the thermal imaging that I've done. Everything is covered in that PSA that I typically would cover under the teardown and patent port. On the patents, it is never my intention to fully release everything that a company has. I just don't feel the need to. Also, majority of companies are very wise in terms of like your flange has a patent, the motor has a patent, the duckbill has a patent. So it gets very tedious and you're talking a whole long rap sheet. I will link the most critical ones down in the description below if you would like to take a gander at their patents. I will say Willow is one of the most sneaky companies in hiding their patents, so it can be more challenging to obtain everything, but I am proud to say I have them all, but some are in Chinese. So I'm not going to worry about all of those. I think I talked about this in the PSA, but in case I didn't, it's actually really disappointing because the patent for the actual Willow Go was very enticing. I really wish they had engineers that could actually make that come to market and parts to make that come to market, because what we have today and what's in the patent is like the wish version of the patent. So that's a bit of a bummer. Just be prepared for that when you're going through the patent. Just if you're reading through, the features that they could have built into the Go were so exciting and really enticing that a lot of moms are looking for, but they just couldn't pull it off. I also find it really disappointing since the Go launched in 2021 and it's 2025 and they don't seem to be circling back to that patent to try and pull it off. So maybe one day we'll get a Go Generation 2, but I'm not holding my breath. Especially when they launched the Go. Again, we were in a global crisis. There were supply chain issues, things of that nature, which gave them a little bit of sympathy at the time because of the internals and the way they were functioning and just how fast they were burning out. But they actually have not chosen to fix any of that well after the fact. So, no brownie points for them, no sympathy points for them on any of that. Another thing you'll see on the patent is the duckbill was actually different. So this duckbill struggles with really heavy letdowns and it doesn't empty and flow fast enough for those moms with an oversupply or an overactive letdown. It really struggles with that. The original duckbill design was actually a little bit longer and was far better suited for that, but they nixed the design due to appealing reasons. Personally, for me, a duckbill is a duckbill. Even this, like, does it look better than the one they had designed? Technically, yes, slightly. But this is going in your bra. This is completely covered up. You're not going to be looking at it. And if that thing is covered in milk anyway, you're not going to care what it looks like. I would have preferred them to actually just release the better duckbill rather than what they did. But alas, here we are. A lot of the Willow Go for me is you could have done so much better. I don't know why you didn't. The fact that the pump is guaranteed to die in 90 days is like bringing a pump is dead in the water to the market and going, here, this is the best we can do for moms. If you disagree with me, feel free to comment down below, but that's just my take on things. A pump should absolutely last more than 90 days and shouldn't be considered basically a disposable pump if you don't have the warranty. Now to what I've kind of been hitting on with the overheating side of this pump. But this is going to go a little bit more in depth than I think even the PSA. So myself, other testers, and clients in the earlier days, like a couple of years ago, were actually being actively burned by the Willow Go when it malfunctioned and overheated. They would also have it melting or catching on fire just from charging. It was a slew of trouble. I will give them credit that in the last year, there seems to be more stability. Their last update seems to have really helped balance that out. It still overheats, don't get me wrong, but it's not an active fire hazard at this point. If another update comes through and for some reason reverses that, I'll put out another PSA just letting y'all know. As of today, it has been stable for over a year and not overheating to the point of burning someone or catching on fire on somebody's desk. On the original PSA, I believe I went through 6 to 10 Willow Go hubs and just made sure all the way around this was accurate information and that this was happening across the board and not just with a select few, which it was. I even got other people's pumps to test in that time frame. Again, you'll find a lot of detail in that PSA video. What's not uncommon even now is that things are going to heat up enough here that you may still see warping inside of the actual casing here. And that can present in terms of maybe the clip breaks, maybe the charging port suddenly doesn't go on just right. You kind of have to wiggle it around or something. Sometimes you can even see visible warping where you're starting to see a curvature happen in the hub, but that has thankfully reduced and it's not as frequent now as it used to be. I will say what does still stand today is do not charge your pumps after they've been pumping. You don't want to hook up the charger that they have to the hot hub to charge, strictly because it's going to rapidly kill your pump. It's going to fry everything inside. That has still not resolved itself in the sense of it being safe to pump your battery's low, let's go charge it. Instead, I recommend giving it a 15-minute break, then plugging it into the charger. An actual expectation for your battery life with your Go or what you should be planning for, I can't actually provide that. Strictly because overheating of the internals varies drastically in the battery life you're going to be getting. It could only impact the circuit, it could impact the battery, it can impact the motor. It just all becomes a variable that we can't predict. It's rated for 3 15-minute sessions of pumping, but if your pump is struggling, if it's overheating more, if you're charging it immediately after pumping, I would expect that to go down dramatically, and you might only get 2 pump sessions or so out of it before it's dead. Also, keep in mind that 3 15-minute session is with the expectation that you're using low to medium suction on the pump. If you're sitting there maxing out your Go, it's going to get hotter and it's going to have an even shorter battery life because it's pulling so hard and it struggles balancing the voltage throughout the entire thing. So that was a lot of like negativity. Let's switch to something a little more positive, the sound of the pump. Thankfully, the Willow Go is actually pretty quiet. It's not the quietest on the market. The LB pumps still hold the place for quietest, but Willow Go is not very far above them and it is still very quiet. You can sit there and you can have a phone conversation, you can have an in-person conversation and still be pumping without fear or concern that somebody's going to sit there and just be like, oh man, what's going on with her mechanical tits over there? Another winning feature is going to be the portability and mobility of the pump. So again, it's a wireless pump. There is no wires, no tubing. It is all fitting in your bra. You don't really have to worry about if it's too heavy to move around or not, right? Because it's designed to go in your bra. So fantastic feature for being a wearable. As far as movability goes, if you're using the 5-ounce container and you tend to pump 5 to 6, maybe 7 ounces, then you're going to have a lot more issues. Like if you're leaning forward or you're moving a little bit erratically, then yes, you're probably going to have some spillage. You're probably going to leak out a little bit with the pour spout if you're not using the cap. If you put the cap in, that does limit the risk even more, giving you far more mobility than previously. Another thing that moms can do is you can switch over to the 7-ounce containers with the cap. Not that they're leak free, but they're the most leak resistant you're going to get out of this pump. If you do the assembly correctly, which I will have an assembly video, we'll go over that here in a little bit, then you really shouldn't have issues with leaking. Thank you, Willow, for finally giving us the cap, because that definitely changed the review for this pump and its movability. Obviously, you can't do things that you could with a leak-free, like a headstand or bending over and touching your toes, but it is pretty leak resistant at this point. Another thing to note in terms of the 7-ounce containers, if you go that route for the leak resistant side of things, you will need to be on top of your bra fit. We did find that even though a normal bra could fit the 5 ounces just fine, we do need to tweak it a little bit for the 7-ounce containers because of how big they are. Like I mentioned about the assembly, let's go ahead and jump to the assembly portion of that. Overall, I'm frustrated with the assembly. The company kicks out recommendations for how to assemble their pumps, obviously, but the big problem with their method is that it tends to cause leaking where there's milk in between the actual hub and the container. Here in the middle, right there where that diaphragm is, if your bra fit, flange fit, or assembly is wrong, then you can end up with milk in here. And then if you look and see, there is a little hole right there that will literally suck all the milk right into your motor and then murder it that way. I'm going to link the assembly video, and I'll also have it like hyperlinked somewhere here on the screen for you. Let's now jump over and we're going to talk about their app, how you can control the pump, the smart features it may have, all of that good jazz, right? This pump is actually dead. I will have screenshots of this app for you. Essentially, when you open it up, it's going to show a few different features. If you're getting it brand new, you can select either the Willow Go, the 360, the Willow Sync, and then you just kind of go in, pair your pumps from there. And then in the future, when you go to pump, it's going to come up and it's going to show you your last session, how that was going. It'll pair to your pumps. It'll give you their current battery life and all that, kind of get you ready to get started. When we're talking about smart pumps, obviously the ability to control them with your phone is top priority for the majority of pumping parents. Thankfully, you get that with the Willow. So you're able to turn it on, control the suction, switch from stimulation to expression, all of that from your phone. However, they've also recently done updates to give you even more features in their app, which is fantastic because it means they finally got a really solid app crew. You can now set pumping reminders via your phone if you'd like. You can set an actual timer. So if you want to sit there and actually stick to like the 15 minutes, you can go in and put in a timer now for that. You can also manually or automatically save your suction strength. Let's just say you always love starting off at 3, and that's where you want to start instead of 1. You can actually go in and program that now, which is another perk for a lot of parents. It also tracks your session history, so you can go back and kind of see how you did for that day or that week if you need to track trends on your milk supply. They do have a shop feature inside of the app as well if you need to buy parts. They also do other things that are more marketing related, like they've got a service tab where you can chat with them or go get connected with their Simply Fed and do things like that through them. You've of course got your settings, and then they've got a learn area where you can review questions, you can go over the FAQs, they have some video tutorials in there, just a whole bunch of stuff. So all in all, the app now is actually quite useful. And so far, it's been pretty stable. In the early days, it wasn't very useful. It was really just like, why am I even doing this? They brought in a lot of new features for that to overcome that. And then, like I said, you used to not be able to trust even pairing your pumps to the app, which at that point ruins the smart features to it. You don't have those issues anymore, thankfully. I will say the app does automatically pair and do the updates in the background now, so you're not going to actually know when they're updating. It's more of just knowing when something's different or changing and nothing on your part has changed. So that is a bummer. It did used to announce when it was updating. They don't do that anymore. Willow does have the generation pumps, which is a completely different suction than the Willow Go, so you do want to be cautious when you're choosing the pump that you want. The Willow Go is the standard tug and release. It's actually fantastic for our Spectra moms because as of today, it's still like a mini Spectra in your bra. The tug and release suction is the majority that you're going to have on the market. It is the most effective and the least hassle. The suction range that you get is 70 to 260 mmHg. And then the cycle speeds that you're going to be working with is anywhere from 90 all the way down to 30 cycles per minute. So what that breaks down and means for you is if you are a mom that wants really slow but light suction, this is not the pump for you. If you're a mom that wants really high suction but you want it to be fast, this is also not the pump for you. This is a pump that is great for just in the middle. You're doing normal program settings for the majority of pumps, and you can typically interchange pumps pretty easily. Sensors and auto shut off features. I already touched on that. It does shut off at 25 minutes, or you can go into the app and work on timers to help with the stopping and controlling of the pump. But there are no sensors in the Willow Go. In the Willow Go patent, but not the Willow Go. So nothing is going to sit there and read your milk volumes for you. Nothing's going to prevent you from overflowing, anything of that nature. It just is not equipped with that information. Does your pump waddle or roll away? This is going to make far more sense in the future for other pump reviews, but I can confidently tell you with the Willow Go, when you set it down, it's going to stay there. You don't have to worry about it. Even if it's turned on and running, it's not going to just like vibrate off the table or anything like that. The design of it does give it a flat bottom. So when you sit it down, you don't have to worry about it flopping over and spilling your milk before you have the opportunity to empty the milk. Yay for that. Let's talk about pricing. When the pump originally kicked out, they were selling it for $350, but due to poor quality and just all the bad reviews it got, they ended up constantly putting it on sale. So much so that to this day, it's still on sale. The lowest I've ever seen it is $245. Majority of the time, it's hovering around $275. Personally, I would value the pump at about $250, given all of the flaws, the limitations, things of that nature. And the $250 still leaves them plenty of profit margin for this pump. Parts and maintenance. As we already discussed, this is a proprietary pump and its parts. So you're going to have a higher price tag with that. And then we already kind of touched on the durability of that and how long they may or may not last. With them being a proprietary parts, the complication there is Willow is the only one that can sell those parts to you. Now, why do I say that's a complication? Well, on 2 occasions now, Willow has had 2 huge blunders where they did not have parts on hand and weren't getting them anytime soon. So parents were literally stuck with a paperweight of a pump that they spent anywhere from, $275 on up to $350 for, or they used an insurance benefit that then they couldn't get back. That doesn't tend to sit well with pumping families. Now I can confidently say over the last year and a half, they've been able to stabilize that and they're really not having those issues, but they've also really pissed off the majority of their consumers. So I don't know that they actually learned any lessons versus they're just not selling that inventory and they're able to keep it back stock now. I'm not sure. But either way, you should have parts for your Willow Go. They are pricier though. I'm going to read from my notes just so I give you accurate information on the cost of everything. The containers and the duck bills, so this portion gets sold as a set. They're currently $35. The flange alone, if it warps or something in washing, that's another $30 a set. You also have the diaphragm, so that donut shape in the middle. That's $17 per set. And the charging block, in true Willow fashion, still does not come with your pump and is one of the main factors to try and prevent murdering it through charging. Is not included, so that's another $15 if you want to make sure that your charging is going smoothly. To summarize, the containers are $35, the flange is $30, and then the diaphragm in the middle is $17. I would recommend any inserts or flanges being replaced every 6 months unless they're showing signs of wear or tear, something of that nature. Your diaphragm, you need to wash it once a day at the end of the day to help it tighten back up because it likes to stretch out. I would say every 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how frequently you're pumping. If you're pumping more than 3 times a day, guarantee that once a month change out is going to be needed. The container and the duck bills. The containers themselves, I'm going to go on a by warping or wear basis. What you typically see is the silicone portion starting to peel away from the plastic. You need to replace those at that point. If it warps and it's no longer sitting flat, you need to replace those. The duck bill is going to follow once a month, typically. If you're, say, twice a day, then you can kick that out to 6 weeks, but it's going to follow about the same as the diaphragm. Now for my personal favorite of the reviews in the future, my rants or random thoughts. For Willow, it's going to be a rant. I personally cannot stand the fact that they sell all of their things at a premium and give you mediocre innovation. They have not innovated since 2019 on anything, which is infuriating. They did bring the Go to the market in 2021, but it was a very, very sloppy release into the market, and it took them 4 years to do minor things like get a cap for your container not to spill. It's really not acceptable. I don't condone that at all on their part. It also doesn't help that it took them from 2018 all the way up to about 2023 to figure out how to stop mass killing pumps with every update they provided. Don't love that. I don't love the fact that their patents show that there is extreme intelligence from at least some engineer, but that they're choosing engineers that can't mimic their brilliance or tolerate their toxic behaviors. That's another big issue with Willow, and to why we don't see the innovation, why we don't see responsive corrections on their pumps and products is they can't keep manpower. If you ever look at their turnaround rate and things like that, they have a very, very high level of turnover at that company, which is nothing but a toxic environment at that point. When you can't bother to keep employees, you're doing something wrong. I don't have a ton of love for Willow over these years. They tend to screw over moms far more than they tend to help. I do continue to recommend the Willow Go because it is one of the few on the market of wearables that are actually worth your dollar. If they ever stop honoring their warranty, that recommendation immediately goes out the window because this just is a disposable pump, and you need to understand that when you purchase. In summary, until multiple companies can really step up and provide something better than the Willow Go, I'm going to keep recommending the Willow Go. It is a solid pump for moms, especially that love the Spectra pump. It's such a simple and easy transition 9 times out of 10 for those pumping parents, at least for 90 days. Never use the Willow Go without that warranty. We've gone through all of the, sadly, huge flaws for this pump, but it does still have winning qualities. It's primed for the picking on the cycle speeds and the suction. It's very quiet. It does have smart features that you can control with your phone for that real discreet pumping, especially if you're at the workplace and you need that. It does have a large capacity. 5 to 7 ounces is hard to find a pump that can actually hold 7 ounces. Overall, it is not a terrible investment as long as you know how to work it and how to keep it running optimally for you. It is still an investment. It is on the pricier side of the pumps on the market, but it can absolutely be a winner for you. I strongly recommend if you have the Willow Go or if you're planning to get the Willow Go, go ahead, join our Facebook community. We are able to get you set up and ready. So everything is optimized to give you that full 90 days out of your pump before you're needing a replacement. You will find that group down in the description below also. And then if this video is really too long or it's just really not your speed or style, I also have the written form in a blog with the review linked down in the description. I hope this review was far more than you ever needed and able to provide you all the information you need to make an informed purchase and investment in your pumping journey.